Welcome back to my series on sports video recording. In my recent 4-part series, I recovered several options for recording outdoor team sports. While I also managed the Pix4 Team 2, now I actually own one so I can give more insights into the device. In short, I think right now it is the best AI recording solution for live production. The 4-part series was a follow-up to my several-year-old Reddit post on sports recording. Check it out here if you want to understand how I got to this point. Now, I managed to score a Pix4 Team 2 from a retiring soccer coach. So this is the device. It also came with the camera and the necessary cables and battery. I would say that I was a little bit hesitant initially to buy it, mostly because I didn't really see that big of an aftermarket, and I indeed actually got a pretty big discount on the device. But in the end, I still decided to risk it, and knowing that it would be hard to resell if it didn't pan out. Now, the TLDR, I'm definitely keeping it. So the unit consists of the robot, which features an fisheye lens for tracking. The robot itself also includes the AI hardware for processing, has this arm at the top to which you attach your camera. And this can then tilt forward, backward, and this entire thing can rotate. You then connect a cable like this one here to get it to zoom. They support different Sony and Canon cameras for this. And then obviously you can attach an HDMI cable. Now the cool thing about the robot is it uses standard Sony NPF batteries. So you can get them in different sizes. You can get some that actually have a USB-C connector. You can even get dummies that just charge via USB-C. So at the bottom, you can see it uses a 3/8 thread, and on the top, it has a quick release that's quite similar to the Manfrotto that, for example, VeoGo uses. So they give you this adapter here that you can then attach to any unit, camcorder, or anything else you want to put up on the robot. Now, it should be said that you actually don't have to attach a camera at the top. You can choose just to record with the fisheye lens, and I'm actually really surprised how good of a quality you get there. I think it's actually less distortion than on a GoPro with the max lens mod. So I got the unit just when the 5.0 firmware was released, and I think that release came with major improvements with tracking. So if you previously used a Pix4 Team, or you had a previous video that you looked at and you weren't convinced, I think you might want to recheck, because I think the quality got so much better. Now, what makes this device different from the VeoGo is that it doesn't require a subscription. So similar to the XBotGo, you can use this without any paid services. That being said, they do provide paid value-added services for cloud storage, scoreboards, banners, and analytics. So these things, cloud storage and scoreboards, are currently free with XBotGo. If you want to live stream, you can actually still do that with the Pix4 Team for free. With the VeoGo, obviously you need a subscription to record anything. And then if you do want to live stream, you actually have to pay for an additional add-in that quickly adds up. Now, I mentioned this cable here, which is used to attach the camcorder to the robot. And once you have that connection, then the robot can actually control the zooming on the camcorder. It also works if you connect it via their remote control camera app that works on Android and on iOS. So if instead you hook up your camera with this attachment here, then you also get zoom capabilities. It'll be interesting to see what the optical zoom on the iPhone 17 will be. I heard rumors up to 8-point optical zoom. That, of course, would be quite interesting on a camcorder like the Sony 43A that I have here. Get 20 optical zoom. There are, of course, camcorders that do up to 30. So that, of course, blows the view out of the water in terms of quality, especially whenever there's any action on the far side of the pitch. Now, the robot here can actually also handle recording both of the fisheye camera as well as the camcorder if you connect the camcorder to the robot via HDMI. So over here, you have a port here where you can put in the HDMI. This, by the way, is also where you can connect the zoom cable. Back here, you can connect Ethernet and you can charge the unit here. And then of course, here's where you attach the battery. Battery here has a release button. So that's all pretty straightforward. Now, the setup is done via an app. And what's cool about the app is that it allows you to set up or choose the sport that you want to use. Then you can set up the field dimensions, and then you go in and then you have to basically mark the edges of the field. Now, this is a little bit tedious and of course time consuming. And if you ever change the position of the robot again and the camcorder, you have to redo all of this. But to me, this really is a game changer because it ensures that any action on the sidelines, so for example, spectators moving or a game that is running in parallel, will not distract the AI at all. XBotGo actually recently added this capability as well. They call it zone mapping. I haven't tried it out, but I think this is really a game-changing feature where with Veo, if we had two games that are running in parallel and there was some interruption on the main field, it would start tracking the action on the other field. And similarly, if you would have spectators running on the sidelines, for example, warming up, this would also confuse the AI. Now, the tracking of the Pix4 team actually really surprised me. So I was using it with Ultimate Frisbee without any optimization, so it's actually not officially supported. They suggested to you use 8-a-side soccer algorithm because on Ultimate Frisbee you have 7 against 7, and it would actually work really, really well. Now, what was a little bit sad is that the algorithm in its current form isn't handling some situations perfectly, specifically long throws. So long throws happen whenever a point is scored and you have what is a kind of a kickoff where the disc is thrown from one end zone to the other. And this is a very predictable situation, but usually the AI was very slow to track. And so you didn't really see the disc flying through the air after a kickoff. Similarly, and this is actually even sadder, sometimes inside the game, it would not react quickly enough to throws. Now, it is possible from within the app to nudge the AI so you can tell it to pan left or right, but it's very slow to react, and so that didn't really solve the problem. Now, the good news is that without any manual intervention, the AI does find the disc within a few seconds again, but again, this leads to some missed receptions of longer throws nonetheless. At the very start, I said this is the best AI solution for video production, and the main reason for that is that it's very easy to get clean HDMI out of the camera. So you basically just connect your HDMI cable and you're all set. So you can then connect that into a video switcher like the Magefile Director Mini that I use. And there you go. You have the ability to take the video footage, combine it with live commentaries, scoreboards, and most importantly, replays. So that's not so easily done with the XBotGo. You would have to stick a GoPro on top, or you would have to do some other attachments on top of the XBotGo, and it's obviously not even possible with the Veo. In order to be able to do that while still feeding video into the robot so you can preview the video via the app, you would need an HDMI splitter like this one here. So this is very straightforward. You have HDMI in, and then you have two outputs. Unfortunately, you do have to power this thing with USB. One thing you could do is attach something like this with a power brick to the bottom of the robot, and that way you could power the HDMI splitter. So what I actually used in my first outing is the Zowietech Zowiebox. What's really cool about this device is that it has HDMI in on one end. It has a loop out on the other. So this is what I connected then into the robot. And then you can power it via PoE, power over Ethernet. And that the Zowiebox itself can also then convert the video signal into NDI over Ethernet. So basically what you do is you convert the video signal into NDI, which again, the Magefile Director Mini can then directly decode. This of course requires using a PoE injector or a PoE switch like the one that I have here. You connect that switch to the Zowiebox, and you connect the switch as well to the Magewell Director Mini. And there you go. You have the ability to run an Ethernet cable instead of a long HDMI cable. Long HDMI cables are very tricky. You can have signal loss. They're quite expensive. They're not so easy to handle because they're usually quite thick and therefore also heavy. So with Ethernet, it's much easier to run a longer cable. So again, if you have a tripod, you know, it's up 3 meters, 4 meters, maybe even 7 meters. And then your desk where you're doing the video production is a couple more meters. So you quickly need, you know, 15 meters, 20 meters of cable. And that is much easier to do with Ethernet. Now, in theory, the Zowiebox actually also is Wi-Fi enabled. So you could also, of course, send a signal via Wi-Fi. But then again, you're back to having to power the Zowiebox by, you know, hanging a power brick underneath your tripod, which I'm a little bit concerned about how that impacts stability of the tripod. What I actually recently bought is this thing here. So this is Digital's HDMI Extender. And so basically you have the ability to have HDMI in here and then HDMI out. So this is again here, camera into HDMI in, HDMI out into the robot. Then on the other side, you see it also has Ethernet, and that then goes into the receiver. So this thing here, and this thing also has HDMI out. So basically with this, you just have point-to-point video transfer via Ethernet. Due to the benefits of Ethernet cabling, that just makes your life so much easier. And what's cool about this specific unit is that most units you can find require power on the transmitter. The Digitus is unique in that it can take power from either side. And this is why I power it from the receiver side, which is much easier to set up. This also means I no longer need a PoE switch. I do still, of course, need a power socket to power this. But so why do I go this route? So NDI is in many ways obviously more flexible. But if you want to monitor NDI, you need more fancy devices. So I could, of course, monitor the NDI via my iPad, but I also have this really nice field monitor so that I can basically send the HDMI from the Digitus into the monitor and then from the loop out there into the video switcher. So that way I have a really nice or larger screen with a sunshade that I can use to monitor the video signal coming out of the camcorder. Now, I didn't use the analytics package from Pix14. That requires a paid subscription, which I didn't buy. According to the website, it allows secure storage, sharing, tagging, clipping, and creating highlight videos from the footage. This is similar to what Veo offers. What is interesting is that in their platform, you can actually upload your own content, which Veo does not allow. But what should also be noted is that I don't know if you can use their analytics just from the fisheye video. And the fisheye video, of course, is non-moving. Now, what you could do, of course, is you could use one's AutoCam to get a moving video, upload that, and then I'm pretty sure you could use their analytics on top of that video. But of course, that is way more involved than Veo. So overall, I would say the Veo is more convenient for analytics. Now, this actually brings me to my wish list, and I kind of limited my wish list to just things that I believe are possible to do via software upgrades. Of course, provided that the processing power is sufficient within the robot. One thing to add here is that, so this is the Pix14 2. They had a version 1, and if you have the version 1, you can actually get it retrofitted for about 500 euros to become a version 2. So this is really cool to see from the company that they're future-proofing your investment in that way. Now, the actual wish list. The obvious thing would be to actually have the algorithm optimized for Ultimate Frisbee. I did provide them with some footage, and they promised that they will look into optimizing it. We'll see how soon that happens. Now, the other thing is that especially until they optimize the algorithm, it would be great if they would support better or more responsive reaction for manual nudges. So while I was recording the recent Swiss Ultimate Frisbee Championship finals, I was able to spend a little bit of my focus on holding the app in my hand and trying to manually nudge it when I was certain that it would be too slow to react, especially to long throws. And as I said earlier, that didn't really react quickly enough. Now, the other thing that would be really cool is if the robot supported streaming via NDI or SRT. That would mean that, you wouldn't need a Zowiebox box anymore to get the video out, and you could directly stream that to your video switcher. I'm not sure how to get to that signal, but in theory, of course, they do provide a streamed video into their app for monitoring. I don't know how good the quality is. In theory, that should work. I tried to get some information from the Pix4 team on how to use that, but somehow they weren't able to provide me with the necessary information. The next thing would be on the analytics side. I mentioned having to use one's AutoCam in case you're only using the fisheye. I don't know for sure if that's the case, but my assumption is if you only record via the fisheye lens and you upload that footage into the analytics, you will not get a moving video from Pix4 Analytics. And I also then suspect that they don't really make it easy to quickly move back and forth from the moving image to this panorama view from the fisheye like you do on the VeoGo. Or what is even cooler in Veo, you can even manually then control from the panorama view to create your own moving experience of the video. So that would be cool. But again, I don't even know if that is a limitation at all. I'm just guessing here. What would be very huge is actually if they would support PTZ cameras instead of camcorders. What's really annoying is that, so with the Sony here, if I want to connect HDMI cable, I have to open the flip out, and that then stays open while, everything is running, which to me, anyway, if the tripod tips over, you're always in danger that, things will break. Actually, I had 2 Veo cameras break that way, mostly when I, lent it out and people were just careless. But, having the flip out screen open, of course, means that the risk of damage is even greater. The other thing is that with camcorders, while, for example, this camcorder can do 4K, it can only do 30 frames per second. Now, I should add that when I live stream, I use 1080p, not 4K, but it would be nice to actually record 4K 60 for post-production while using 1080p 60 for the live stream and replays. And PTZ cameras, it's much more affordable to get 4K 60 than with camcorders. Now, PTZ cameras basically allow you to remote control them via either the VSCA or the NDI protocol. So that is essentially what they would have to add in order to be able to use PTZ cameras. Another advantage of PTZ cameras is that you can actually get waterproof PTZ cameras. You can get, all sorts of flexibility with output using NDI, SRT, SDI cables, Wi-Fi, etc. As for my final verdict, again, I would say this is hands down the best option if you want to do AI tracking of team sports with high quality video production, meaning adding live commentary, adding replays, adding scoreboards, banners, and so on and so forth. This is really the way to go. I even did a couple of videos where I was running both the camera and doing live commentary and doing replays all at once. Of course, very exhausting, but it is possible. It is also useful for analytics purposes. Again, if you then want to keep it simple, just don't attach a camera, just use the fisheye, and you will get decent results. It's not that hard to set up then, but again, compared to the view, you will not get a moving image along with the panorama view. The other thing that I really want to highlight is that it's very refreshing to have a much more open system. Obviously, this thing here is proprietary, but it uses standard batteries. It uses a camcorder or a standard phone. It uses standard HDMI cables. So all of that means that, if anything breaks, you actually have a chance of fixing it. The 2 cameras that broke with Veo, they don't care. They don't repair it. You have to buy a refurbished unit, which is, of course, also just environmentally just not sustainable. Now, you can also, of course, use the battery for something else. You can use the camcorder for something else. So, for example, if you're recording some drills and you want to manually manage the angles, you can do that because you also have a camcorder now. The main drawbacks I see is that the initial investment is quite steep. So you have to pay quite a bit for the robot. Of course, you can start off just using a phone and then later on buy the camcorder. But if you buy the full package, you're quickly looking at more than 3,000 euros. So that includes, of course, a tripod. The other things I would say is that the Veo is better if you're doing just analytics or you want to do hands-off live streaming. So you just want to put up the camera, start the live stream, but you don't want to do add commentary or replays, then the Veo is easier to use, I would say. Finally, the XBotGo is of course cheaper and more compact while also requiring no subscriptions. So that's my verdict on the Pix4 Team 2. I think it's a very, very good solution, and I will be looking into talking to some of the other federations in Europe to see if we can bring more video coverage with